Good afternoon, everyone. This is Sahil, part of Northern membership team. Welcome you all to this analytics session in human resources. So today's session will be covering the evolving role of technology in the HR, what has been the pace when it comes to tech adoption in HR, and how managers are driving the productivity, how data is being utilized in transforming the HR business function. To share more views and insights on this, we have a panel today, moderated by Rajesh Padmanabhan, Chairman, HONO.ai. I request now Rajesh to please set the context and introduce the fellow panelists. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here with us. It's about 50 minutes, 3 o'clock. Initially, 3 of us thought that we should bring some PowerPoints and all, but then later realized 3 o'clock not a great idea, and not also on a topic which is certainly not settled and which is still evolving, and plenty of scope and discussions that have got to be done. So in the process, we said, let's discuss some of those stuff, and we are very varied. I wouldn't be able to do justice to my fellow colleagues in terms of introduction, but I can do for myself, and then we'll hand over the mic to them to do their bit, because they're very accomplished gentlemen that I have on the left and on the right. With me, I can say that I've been 3 decades in the industry. 3 decades plus in the industry, did different stages, did different roles. Started as a COBOL programmer, became a system analyst, was a corporate banker with ICICI, did strategy and planning, did P&Ls, did SAP consulting, business consulting, and then moved into HR. So did line, technology, and HR across industries. So starting with ICICI and then with SL Packaging, after which with the Oberoi Group, where I was president for HR and the OC Oberoi Center for Learning. After which moved to Patni Computers, where I was on the board of Patni, handling global HR. I was on the India board of Capgemini as CHRO plus business consulting. And after which I was on the Vedanta board at group level for all the companies at PLC level in London. And post which Wellspun again at the group level. After which COVID struck, and I think as many would have had it, I also thought, why not moonlight then? I'm talking of moonlight 2 years back. So now I've run a string of stuff for my own living. I'm chairman of HONO. I run an exec coaching company, an American coaching company as MD. I'm CEO of a consulting company. I sit on a few boards. I do government work. And this is genuine moonlighting. So don't ask me how much or pro bono, how much do I get paid. Not all, converts in the form of money, but nevertheless, I think there's significant value that I've been able to extract for myself and been able to contribute as well. Yeah, so that's me. I hail from Mumbai, and delighted to be here, and delighted to be with my co-panelists to, do this part of the session. Can I hand it over to you, Raju?
Absolutely, Rajesh. Thank you very much. This is, I'm Raju Macharla. I work as a country head in Bravura Solutions. It's a fintech company. And I don't have as much long introduction as Rajesh. And so my entire career is in engineering. And the last 5 years or so, I'm working as a country head where some engineering, some part of operations and everything is handled by me. However, I don't know why am I sitting in the HR panel. I have no idea. But but however, I might be learning from you, and you might be learning some little bit of tidbits. How we, as a person who is running the show in India division, how I see the HR function, I might be able to add value. So that you might get a couple of points on that. I worked in before Bravura Solutions. I worked at Oracle and Sun Microsystems. So I have seen Sun Microsystems rise and fall and finally demise. So that's kind of unfortunate, but it's one of the best companies many of us, and including myself, worked for. Earlier to that, I was with Synopsys, and before that, I was with HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, and Hyderabad I was in. So I started my career as a hardware engineer and evolved into software engineer, and later everything except HR role, every role I played. So that's about it. I will hand it over to Rajiv.
Thank you. It's always an honor to be actually sharing the dais with such an experienced and veterans sitting with you and that's what I always, happen to meet. Uh, so my, I was born in Padi Gadwal. My roots are from there in Uttarakhand. I lived mostly in Delhi NCR, except for 2.5 years when I was in Pune. Uh, Happened to come into HR because of a conversation which I had with one of the professors in one of the colleges of Delhi University. I was so confused what to do in future. She actually kind of helped me get enlightened about my career, and that's where I pursued my postgraduate program in HR and got into HR. Been in technology industry throughout in my career. Started with HCL, worked there for 3.5 years. It was the time when the entire IT industry was booming. So we used to, almost work every day. And I used to enjoy going to office even on Sunday. So was fortunate enough to work very closely with Vineet Nair as part of his passion to people transformation. And then I went on, joined Interglobe Technologies, IGT. That's how commonly it is known. It was the time when Indigo Airlines was launched by them. Then I moved on and joined Global Logic. That was my largest tenure. 8.5 years I served them. In my last assignment with them, I was leading HR for India as well as Global OD function. Then I moved to Pune and joined Dassault Systems. It's a French product company. 2018, I came back to Delhi and joined Infogain. And since then, I have been with Infogain. So that's about me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raju and Rajiv. Welcome to the session once again. We discovered that we are 3 Rs. We also discovered that there's one thing in common. All 3 of us have 2 daughters each. So and we stopped there. We didn't go for 4 more similarities. We said that this is like, getting too ideal now. Of course, the discussions are not going to be very ideal. So since this is a closed room format, what I suggest is we will keep it a little open. So if you have anything at a specific point of time, raise your hand and we'll get you into the discussion straight then and there, rather than we doing a little bit of a monologue and then, doing a bit of Q&A at the end. So the format is like a little free and open, number one. Number two, be with us. Yeah, it's never going to be easy to sum up a discussion on something which is HR analytics. I'm very passionate about it. And I'll start with a little bit of context setting. Yes, first is, I think ideally we need to figure out what analytics could be in terms of an ideal dashboard. All we're talking about is, the first point that I want to say is, HR from a life cycle management has gone into a complete state of business cycle integration. We'll talk a lot about it, yeah, business cycle integration. What I really mean is, it's not just managing hire to retire or recruit to retain, stuff like that already being done, and many of these parts have been dealt with by the machines now. You hardly get involved these days. I say that the 4 Ps have been substituted with 4 Cs. What typically used to be policies, people, processes, and practices have got converted to culture, capabilities, contribution, and credibility. There's an ocean of change. So it's not life cycle, it is lifestyle now. And all of us are dealing with this change, grappling with this change. I don't mean to say that, any one of us can say with conviction that we have all arrived. We're dealing with it, right? Some of us have been successful partly, some of us are learning to cope with this. And I call it like, there are some people who have, post this whatever metamorphosis of change. Some of them have really fallen out. Some of them have tried to survive. Some of them are tried to level and come back to where they were. And some of them are really excelling in this situation. So that clearly tells us there's a lot of opportunities. So from a business cycle integration, HR has really got to figure out into the futuristic world, be amongst something that's contributing to business value, decision making of tomorrow, futuristic, enabling the entire enterprise valuation, etc., 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 and more. If you're not part of that, or if you don't see that journey, might as well jump into it. And that is where the HR analytics part of it comes into being. Number 2, the shift from a qualitative to a quantitative HR. I define it as #QuantHR, and you'll find me, blogging quite a bit about it. What I mean is, HR has always been a soft function. We've always dealt with people, we've dealt with emotions, we've dealt with something that has got to be, dealt like on a human to human basis, and we've kept the science part of it out. But I think there's a lot of stuff glaring at us to say, why not get a few things into this? Because at the end of the day, an enterprise is bound by the top line, bottom line, and the cash. Yes, there are social contributions that have got to be done, but at the end of it, this is where it comes down to. And with a lot of compression happening across the life cycle, there are a lot of challenges with respect to that. Can we see it today? So the shift from qualitative to quantitative part of it. The third one is insights to foresights. A lot of us do analysis, right? I mean, whether it is the attrition part of it, or whether it's the hiring rates, or whether it is with respect to the overall performances, the entire stuff has got to be converted to foresight. So what does it mean to be doing predictive attrition? What does it mean to be doing show rates, for example? If you were to look at every single dimension of the life cycle, whether it is, let us start with recruitment, for example. Recruitment, I mean, it's important to figure out what's the quality of hire. It's important to figure out what are going to be the show rates. How many people are going to show up at the end of the day? It's important to figure out what's the stickiness that's going to be there, etc., etc. Now, these are all complex stuff. These are all not easy stuff. But can it be codified? Can an algorithm be written? Can something be done with reasonable amount of conviction and probability? The answer is yes. Today, we have those opportunities. And I pride to say, in HONO, we do a lot of some stuff around it. I'm not saying we're successful in every single stuff, but we do a lot, and we make an attempt to build this. Similarly, let me take a big one. 5 decades, we've all been measuring performance, right? We've all been measuring performance for eternally, God knows, right from the day management was discovered. But is it performance that's got to be measured? It's the contribution that's really making an impact. Performance is a measure of effort. Contribution is the measurement of outcome. That's where analytics comes in. Just to give you a case in point. So that is where I said that the 4 P's to the 4 C. The third C that I said was contribution. If you do not know what your contribution is going to be, and that brings me to the point of talent to value. At the end of the day, an enterprise is comprised of talent. Now, how do you really define value to that talent is what analytics could do. Yeah. And we've had some internal discussions, and you'll see a lot of value coming out of that. The last one is, the talent to value was the fourth one. I think these are the 4 points I wanted to set as context, and dwell deep into the entire analytics space. So every single area that you do in terms of managing, try and see how could you take it to the next level of predictive. It could be predictive capabilities, it could be predictive performance, it could be predictive attrition, it could be flight risk predictions, it could be show rates. Every single aspect actually makes life bring to a decision-making level where you bring the line and the people function together. At the end of the day, that is what matters. Yes, HR is no more a function in my view. I call it a functional conglomerate because you're suddenly expected to do many things. But that's where the opportunity is. That's where the opportunity is. So let me start this conversation with a debate, I think what I spoke about was like a little bit of heavy stuff, right? I mean, is this true? I mean, that's where it's starting. Maybe true, may not be true, but at least it's staring at all of us, right? So let me turn to my left and ask Raju. I mean, he's a business guy, at the end of the day. And I'm going to start with a provocation to say, are we expecting too much of science? Are we building too much of stuff? Is this a false world? Do you think there's merit in whatever we are discussing? Or push back if you think that this is not what it has got to be. Focus on this, best employer. Do engagement surveys, concentrate on swings, figure out what your health is, do some exit interviews, and life is good. So I'm starting with the provocation, Raju.
Thank you, Rajesh. Having coming from engineering background for 30 plus years, what I will say is that if I can't measure, I can't improve. So it's very important for us to provide some metrics into everything we are doing. HR function, I know it is an EQ function, it's not an IQ function. However, I see everyday conflicts in various functions. HR managers, you all know all the functions. If you take a couple of examples like recruiting. Recruiting is a big tussle between the hiring managers and the recruiters. And hiring managers say that you are not giving me quality candidates, and the entire funnel from top to bottom, when the person comes on board, is almost like 1:30. So if I get 30 resumes, then I get finally one candidate joins on board, right? And then when I see from the business angle, oh my goodness, this guy is, we are interviewing 30 people to get one person on board. If this guy has 10 positions open, then 300 interviews this person team has to do, and then I'll multiply the number of hours the team is going to spend. From HR side, you won't see, okay, I am able to hire this many people. That's all you will report to the management. But thing is, I see how many hours are being spent by the lead engineers to hire the people. And then we'll ask the questions, is it going in the right direction, and how can you improve on that, right? Then of course other parameters, I just don't want to beat on the talent acquisition alone, but there is a lot of metrics and analytics. Of course, yeah, all of you might be already doing it or might be mentally doing it, but that data has to be presented to the management and people so that right decisions can be derived using the data. And of course, Rajesh talking about predictive. That's the really next step if I think about it. If I can measure it and then improve it, then next level is prediction. If I can do the prediction, it's even better for next quarter, next half of the year or next year. That predictive analysis is going to be much more useful so that we can get some business decisions out there. And so, especially when we are resolving the issues between the hiring managers and this one, the data is going to help a lot. And other part of is learning and development also. A lot of, we have so much available in the market for people to learn and develop their knowledge, right? And as leaders somewhat at the middle level and top level, we think that, okay, so much is there, but 30 years back, I started my career with the Fortran programming, right? So he was talking about COBOL, I started with Fortran. Probably you guys don't even know the translation of those names, right? That kind of where we started when we were entering the computer. IBM 1130 is the mainframe I started with. And so point is that now the difference is so much. You can take a phone, and these days I speak to my phone and say that press that mic button and say that whatever I want, and it answers my question. That's the advancement. Then I think that, okay, so much is available. Why would I need to learning and development? I need to spend time, right? But however, mindset hasn't changed. Engineers do complain when it comes to reviews or the surveys we conduct. That's where they say that there's no learning and development in this company. Then that became as a surprise to me, and I'm sure that this is done by HR function in my office, and it came as a surprise. And so further, then we thought that what are we doing, and we started improving on that, and we started publishing the data. And career development, and that's another thing, HR function, but actually it is all the things we are talking about is everybody's function. Every manager, every individual in the company has to be responsible for all these functions. Then only as a HR or anybody as a company will be successful. I would say put everybody together and bring in the data and show that this is what is available. We publish that in our smaller companies, about 1,400 employees in the company, and for close to 450 employees in India, right? But in India, a lot of people, I don't know how many of you are from this services organization, right? One of the measures a lot of people ask is, when am I going on-site? When are you sending me to the on-site, right? Same thing happens in product-based company. So when are you sending me the on-site, right? Then what we did is we'll publish that data also. So every month we publish the data. At least nobody complains that you are not sending anybody. At least if I can't see it, it doesn't exist, right? A lot of us are like that. If I don't see it, it doesn't exist. So that's why we are making that data available. And next level is predictive. We haven't gotten there yet.
Thank you. And you've made life a little easy. So you're saying that it's not too much of science, but common sense stuff, which is like glaring at the business. Try and resolve it and be there and bring some science to it, but don't make it completely science, is what you said. So thanks for that. I'm turning on to you, Rajiv, and the next question to you is, Has the HR function been agile and in adoption of particularly the technology stacks? I think with respect to, if you would look at the SMAC stack, I think social part of it, the mobility, and the cloud part of it is reasonably done. But how much of penetration, you'll have to speak on behalf of the fraternity, not for you. I know that you're fairly agile. And how much of an opportunity is there for the HR function? How much of absorption has been done? How much of evolution is happening? And what's the gap that needs to be done going forward? Just bringing what I said and what Raju added, just stitch that together, and then we'll move on to stage 2.
So definitely, I think the people organization has become much more agile in last few years, at least, to say the least. But coming to the question you asked, Rajesh, I'll actually put it in the context of HR functional maturity as one, organization maturity as two, and then the journey, which we have been getting into, and I'll give some experiential perspective to that. So there are certain, HR organizations which are not much matured in terms of even going beyond the basics. They have a struggle in terms of delivering the basic experience to their people. Expecting them to be agile in terms of adopting to analytics or technology-oriented solutions would be a big expectation, and I think they need to really do much more than in enhancing their capabilities from a function perspective. Now, second important thing is the organization commitment. Now, there are HR organizations which are competitive, and they do understand the importance of analytics, and they have gone beyond the basic dashboards, and they will have dedicated people working on bringing in insights from the data and providing some bit of predictability to some extent. But then possibly organization, they still need help. They need help in terms of acceleration. They need help in terms of sustainability. They need help in terms of predictability. And for that, the investment has to come from a technology solutions perspective. And that technology solution has to be different from automation. Automation can help you bring the efficiency and scale. It can actually replicate your manual Excel-based processes into the workflow, and that will actually help you in terms of scale and efficiency, as I talked about. But it may not necessarily give you insights. It may not necessarily give you predictability. And that's what is most important aspect from the decision-making standpoint. Now that's where organization commitment is very essential, that as an organization, are we committing to make investment in that space? Because you need help. Either you go outside or you put team together to build those capabilities in-house if you are a technology organization. Now, if I give you some experiential perspective from my own journey, so we have all three aspects of maturity. There are certain things where we have been managing at dashboard level. For example, productivity, performance reviews, and managing people, career, etc. That's all basic information level we retrieve from system. We maintain some dashboard as and when it is needed. Those are done. Then there's insight-based, which is all about attrition, for example. The entire storyline around what is my resignation of today. There's a dashboard which is available. Every day I can see how many people have resigned, what is the status from that standpoint. And at the same time, if we would like to see what is the risk probability of the organization, then the monthly view is available. So those insights are available. Now the predictability is the stage where we want to be in almost in every aspect. But from organization perspective, if I were to give you realistic examples, one is recruitment, where we have been able to actually gain a lot of predictability. So we would know today, basis the data insights which we have been actually putting together, that which kind of people would likely to join us, which kind of recruiter would give us better yield, which kind of skill hiring will actually have specific impact from overall onboarding perspective, which kind of companies will struggle still, even if we give offer to those candidates in terms of bringing them on board. So that kind of insight and predictability beforehand is available. We also know that which sourcing channel today helps us the most. Within what notice period the person is going to be joining us more. Those predictability have been brought in. Now, can we say that all these predictability would be 100% accurate all the time? The answer is no. The reason is very simple, because we deal with the human psychology and behavior. which is very unique. God has been kind enough to make us unique, and our preferences, values, behaviors, while we may bucket them under psychometric tools and say that, okay, I'm part of this, I'm part of that, but the reality is that there are so many other variables which would influence or enable my journey as an individual, which could be very unpredictable. So even if you bring in human intervention, coupling that with the technology, you will not be able to make 100% prediction correct. Even with the manager, for example, you would see when we talk about early warning system, you will have managers failing to make the right prediction. And they may claim that, oh, I had a great relationship with this person, and I'm surprised that he resigned or she resigned. That's the complexity of the human behavior, and that's why we don't call it applied science. We call it human science or behavior science, because you can't replicate the same formula and say that the outcome would be similar. And remember, every company is different, every culture is different, every context is different. Now that's where the predictability will not help you, but at least it will have some R value, which will enable you to make some predictability and have some insight or mitigation around that. The second space where we have been able to bring in a lot of predictability is our equity and compensation process. We are able to actually do it very, very methodical and a scientific way. We have designed framework, because that's one area where you can still drive a lot of predictability. Because you know that there would be only one specific behavior which will be driven by that. And the third area where we are actually working very extensively, and we are leveraging one of our practice organization, which is into AI ML, we are trying to work with them to create predictability on employee risk. And there are various variables, and it's so complex. We had brief conversation over the lunch that it's so difficult to put all the variables together and say that if everything remains same, the outcome would be this. It's not going to be happening. But still, we're still trying. It's a trial and test phase in which we'll figure out some possibility for us. And in future, I think the more we get into that space of predictability, it will benefit us as an organization. And that's where as HR people or HR fraternity, we need to move towards, because it will help us bring in much more credibility in the organization standpoint. So these are some of my perspectives, Rajesh.
Awesome. I think, few good takeaways. Point number one is don't need to be 100% perfect. I think wherever you have a question, try and make an attempt and get there is one big takeaway. I think he gave us a lot of questions in terms of right from, hiring to the contributions to attrition to stickiness to the entire other value chains as well. That's number one. Number two is you don't need to, I don't know how many of you picked up, he said you don't need to develop solutions by yourself. I think depend upon expertise which is available. So don't worry about, solving it yourself. There are enough experts in the market. That's where we make our living. So, we'll have the cards given to you at the end of this. That's number two. But importantly, I think the behavioral part of it, which is said, I think is a very complex stuff, So the macro is, human behavior is a function of ability and motivation. Ability is a further sub-function of culture, education, experience, expectation. And motivation is a further function of personality and environment. I think it's a very complex value chain in terms of how people behave. And one can't really build. You know the macro, but to define all of that and to convert it to a value and then the empirical value is very difficult. But nevertheless, I think we have at least gotten there. Today, at least we are able to define this, we are able to understand. Who knows, maybe a few years down the line, if we move in this particular direction, we'll be able to do. I always keep giving a simple example of IPL. At the end of the day, what do you do in an IPL? You bet on a few players, right? And at the end of the day, they deliver performance. So it's all about betting on people. So if we are betting on people, are we betting on the right people? Can there be some value that can be brought in? And that's where analytics comes in. So whether it is hiring or whether it is performance or whether it is retention or whether it is capability building, there can be value. So let me take this discussion one level deeper. Now, one example, Raju and Rajiv both, and I'll also give one example. One concrete example where you did something, whether it's a success or a failure, doesn't matter. An attempt was made to convert this to a business value creation. one HR process or a practice or a transaction where you applied a little bit of an analytics view, tried to do something and derive some business value out of it. And if you have derived, share that example. I think that will be of some insight in terms of how analytics can be taken. So you want to go first, Raju? Thank you.
I briefly spoke about that. I'm going to take the talent acquisition team's example, where we had issues with lot of complaints at the managers level, hiring managers level, saying that we are unable to hire, and we are failing to execute our projects, right? And all of you would have experienced last 1.5 years great resignation, and we all as leaders and HR team were under the hot seat, right? On the hot seat. So that time we created, we started working and putting together this hiring funnel. And then within that funnel, basically we identified various steps from JD creation and what exactly people are looking at. And all I'm saying is the basic stuff only. Some of you might be already doing it. I won't take big credit on that. So, but we did that because we were not ad hoc, we were doing kind of ad hoc. So we did the JD creation properly. We don't want people who are walking on the water. We want skills needed for that particular job than anything else. That is filtering of that part. Then next one is basically giving some basic questions from the hiring managers, by the hiring managers to the recruiter, and creating a one-on-one relationship between recruiter and hiring manager. So that is also helping reducing some of the, improving actually process and reduce some of the escalations. Then questions and others, people who are ready to take online tests, and we tied up with a company who would conduct the online test for people. And some people, you might already know that some people, why should I write a test? I don't want to write the test. Then we do, but we do want to hire such people too. No, it's okay. So then they bypass the online test. Then they have a different interview process. That data also we started publishing. Then we found out that inconsistencies in the interview panel members. So you might be seeing that in your own companies. So we wanted to bring some consistency in the way they interview and reject or accept the candidates, right? Otherwise, next level interview, people are getting either rejected or false positive and false negative. Those things are happening. So we kind of try to reduce that part of it. And finally, offers. And HR team thinks that, okay, there is for this particular role, this particular experience, we want to offer this much package and all that, right? However, in a large company, there's the flexibility for HR. Maybe there may not be there, but in smaller companies, we do have the flexibility. So before rejecting somebody for because of some 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs, 1 lakh difference, no, that HR team would discuss with me first. I'm reject. What do you say about this, Raju? Because I know the business angle compared to the HR side. So I would think about it and see how important this person to come on board quickly compared to delaying it for another next candidate, right? So that also helped in reducing some of the tension and improving our ability to hire, bring people on board. And coffee with Karan. So that's we introduced that one too. Basically, hiring manager would call the candidate to have a coffee with him or her, and that person would come. And recently, about last 3 months, we introduced that joining kit, which we give it for the employees when they come on board. We decided that we'll give it anyway with the offer. And at most, we lose whatever thousands, a couple of thousands of rupees. It's okay. It is okay. But if that he or she might think, okay, let me try to join. Okay, some kind of loyalty will be there, right? We want to gain that emotional loyalty from that candidate. So with that coffee with Karan and joining kit, and when the candidate comes to the office, now we show the office. We have a very good office, almost like Google Office we have. So we show that one and we showcase that one. And we also introduced one more thing. It might be useful to you. We take we create a collage of all the office location where photos, and we create a collage and we send that one as a soft copy to the employee. If that person is not coming to the office, now we send that one, and we send a diary, and in that all the values of the company and all that written. So like the small things which might, it's not analytics I'm talking about, but things which worked for me and working, and we are agile, we are learning. So that's why I keep telling my people that I'm happy to be part of a developing nation than developed nation. And so I'm sure you understood that. So developing means I'm continuously learning and developing. And develop means I'm already done, and I don't want to look at it. That's in a way that learning stops. So that's why we are continuously agile, learning and hearing from people and why they are joining and why they are not joining. So if they are not joining, we do pick up the phone and ask why are they not joining. If they answer to us, then we have some database. Thank you.
Thank you, Raju. I think, it's good to have a business guy in the discussion. They speak so simple, and we complicate many a times, So we always give different vague answers. But the way you expressed was so simple, and I think the convergence between the business and the talent example that he gave was narrowed down. He just put it in simple terms. I'll turn to Rajiv and let him share an example, and after that I have also got an example to share. So talking of something specifically in the area of analytics, maybe just one example which really strikes a chord with the audience, which gave you business value.
So now I'll give you the complex response. You got the simple response from the business side. Whenever we talk about business value creation, it's very contextual to the organization again. At the end, everything really goes to the top line and bottom line context and the associated enterprise value around that. But if I give you more relevant example from my journey perspective in Infogain, which is a private equity backed organization, in a private equity space, it's always the enterprise value, which is the real business value creation, because that's what investors would be looking for from any portfolio organization. Now, there are so many examples I have, and I'm finding it very difficult in my head how to actually reach to one, but let me set the broader context in terms of what are the 3 key priorities which are going to be helping as one of the pillars or 3 independent pillars to achieve what we want to deliver to our shareholders or the investors. And there are 6 pillars which CEO is driving. Out of this 6, there are 3 which are people driven. So number 1 is the employee brand promise, which we need to deliver to our employees. It's like we say our go-to-market positioning to our customer is XYZ. They should be knowing us as Infogain like that. If you're calling us as a human-centered digital platform organization, that's how they should relate with us. It's not us saying this, but they experience it while working with us. Similarly, what is the brand promise we are delivering to our employees? And we are actually looking at that from multiple measures perspective. One is we partner with Great Place to Work to diagnose the overall trust index of the company. And we have a very great journey when 2018, when we did it first time, we came out from being a legacy founder-driven company to a private equity-backed company, and that's where most of us joined the organization. Our trust index was 55 only in 2018. This year it was 80. 55 became 66, 66 became 71, 71 became 80, and India was 82. That's how the journey has happened. Now there's a lot which goes behind this. If I link the analytics around it, what GPTW gave us was the trust index and the data. Now, the sustainability around it, the transformation around it, the commitment from the leadership top down was all the initiative. And at the end, that got measured. As Raju was saying at the beginning that till the time you don't measure, basically, he brought in the aspect of measurement to drive the actions and decisions in the organization context. Now, going back, GPTW is one element to it. Second is when we are telling our people, this is our brand promise. One, we want them to feel engaged, and that's where GPTW comes to play. Second, we want them to learn, and that's where the learning perspective of the organization will come to play, and I'll talk about that as one of the pillars. And the third is that they feel that they really feel belong with the organization. They want to refer the people. Similar to Aeon's concept of say, stay, strive. I say positive about the company, and that reflection will come through the social media like Glassdoor and referral as internal, right? So we measure all of that, and we have observed that from a sourcing channel perspective, the most successful sourcing channel for us is referral. The joining ratio is the best in that. And that's how you leverage the analytics in terms of linking and then combining all of it together to say that what is the ultimate business value which you're driving through that pillar. And the second pillar is all about learning, where for us, TNI has become obsolete. We don't do TNI thing at all. So what we have done is we came up with the platform. The entire learning map for everybody basis the role has been deployed in that platform, and we have made it more pull-based, and we are sponsoring a lot of certifications as part of that journey as well. What we have seen is the hours investment on learning, which we used to drive earlier, we are automatically achieving that. In certain cases, the nomination to learning journey has been higher than that. And that's a real value, because what is happening is, and how did we actually make the entire excellence program, as we call it, Infogain Excellence Program, we have linked it with what we sell to our customers. Now, from a starting point of the SFDC, so we have linked everything. Sorry, I'm going a little longer, but we have linked it with the SFDC, where we are seeing that at sales funnel level, what are we selling? What capabilities are we offering to our customers? And these capabilities have become much more complex in the last few years, particularly with the pandemic, because we work with customers who are Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies, and they have acceleration from a technology perspective, and we are enabling that for them. Now, in that space, if you're selling very complex, which we had not done in the past, for example, Kubernetes skill, which we didn't have in the past. We got deeper into cloud, we got deeper into data insights, AI, ML, the entire full stack perspective, front-end technologies, back-end technologies, microservices, all that has been evolving in a very different context. It's a combination of multiple skills which are playing out. Now, do we have those capabilities in-house? And at the same time, one is IJP, you can publish that, but are you enabling employees to get into that learning part? And that's what we wanted to address. At the same time, we wanted to address the capability part in the organization, so that what we are selling and what we are building in-house is aligned well, and we are creating that learning culture in the organization context, which will actually help us move in that direction. And all of it gets tracked, monitored, measured, because it's part of our pillar. And third is all about sustainability, social and diversity impact. For us, as a traditional organization, we're 30 years plus old company. We were founder-driven company until 2015, 2016. That's where the PE firm came in picture. But before that, it was founder-driven company, very Indian context-oriented. India is the largest delivery center for us. We are over 5,000 people in India, and globally we are 6,200. So only 1,000 plus people are outside of India that way. Now what we are doing, we are building capabilities from a diversity point of view in the organization context. We opened our office in Latin America, Uruguay. We opened our office 2 years back in Poland. Our headquarters in the US, definitely we are a US headquartered organization. Now ethnicity is one important denominator for us to measure. Diversity from gender perspective is another aspect for us. The culture context, the presence of organization across different continents is another important perspective for us, because collectively all these intangibles will also add to the overall business value, from which will drive the enterprise value for our investors at some stage. Because diversity brings a lot of different good perspectives for the organization. Our ability to sell in the markets where we don't have sale engine right now will also go up because of those, because we'll offer nearshore locations to those customers. Now, that is one element. The social element is another perspective. So there are these designated pillars which is driving the actions for us as a priority to impact the business outcomes from an investor's point of view as a business value creation. And then there are so many other stories which keep happening. There's a OD function which will be running, change management and analytics has to play an important role in that. There's a CNB function which can't exist without analytics, because our analytics in CNB is the best. We have a very robust framework in place, and the way we manage our compensation equity program in the organization is world class. So I'll actually leave it at it. There's so many things, otherwise I'll keep going. Thank you.
I think the amount of stuff Rajiv spoke just now is worth a masterclass, right? I mean, he gave numerous examples. I'm sure he just touched and scratched through a few things and got out. But I think one could really get a flavor of right from a go-to-market customer point to diversity to organizational health index. How do you really link all of this, convert it to business valuation? Because at the end of the day, it's a peace story. So all of this is, we're living in a real world. Let me give you two examples. Again, I'm not going to blow it up. If those who are interested actually can come to me at a later part. The first one was I did something 12 years back. And this was like, I did a predictive attrition code myself, Sharat, if you believe that. So I did not know how to write a code, but nevertheless I attempted. So what I did was more out of a difficulty. I mean, when the line was going after me for like attrition, like, what is happening, and the people were actually getting into the attrition and swings as to what is going wrong. Instead of that, I converted that to predictive attrition. So I had a BI team at the back end. I had a benefit of using them, and then really wrote a code which I got with a 60% probability of success. So I can tell you the full engine in terms of how it works, but for paucity of time, I wouldn't get there. But it's perfectly a doable exercise. If I've done that 12 years back, maybe in a defined environment, why can't it be done now? It's perfectly doable, number one. In HONO, we've done it for a client, actually, which is predictive absenteeism. Now, this is immediately converting to value because we predict the absenteeism an hour before the absenteeism actually happens. Yeah, and in that also there's an allocation of resources that happens to the client. Automatically, the fulfillment of the resources happen, and then this is translating into productivity straight away. Now, this is a tried, tested, working one for one of our client. So similarly, we can do, as some of the show rates that he said, or it's predictive absenteeism or predictive attrition, linking it to the overall organizational health index. You can keep on doing. The only stuff which is a little vague and you could get some feels around it is this learning part of it. Yeah, nobody knows what the future capabilities is all about. If you're able to get into a zone where you're able to predict the future capabilities and ready them today, I think you're clearly an enterprise of tomorrow. I think those are the apples of tomorrow. Yeah. So that's a difficult architecture. It's not an easy one. But is it doable? It's not impossible. It's doable with a reasonable amount of success. It may be as low as 40 to 50%, but it's doable. So every single aspect of the human resource function, there can be some blended sense. And I want to, turn to Raju, because he eventually said, keep it simple. Yeah, don't complicate it. I mean, being an engineer and that coming from him, and being a business guy, if it comes from him, then we've got to be real. I mean, let's not complicate it. But all those stuff are what we need to bring together. I'll pause here. Yeah, I think we need to definitely involve you guys. Yeah, otherwise, there are many stuff that we can keep talking, but it'll be good to get some kind of conversation going from your side as well, so that we are able to build. And if you want to pick any one of us, go ahead. But just raise your hand, and then we'll be happy to get you along into the discussions. Anyone? Join us. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Mansi from Orange Mantra Technology Private Limited. Basically, when I heard you guys talking about the analytics in a way wherein HR analytics can help business specifically, right? Some some of the points which are related to productivity, which are related to signs of productivity from the people what we are having on board, right? That is quite what we have worked on. So I have few instances to share here. As I take care of human capital, so I touch each and every edge of starting from recruitment to the exit, and in fact, I would more talk about the engagement piece, wherein we talk about resource management also. That is one of the key area for each and every organization nowadays. And being into services, we have diverse, kind of industries we are helping with a digital transformation. Now, when we take active participation in analytics, right? Human analytics, data analytics, you can name it, you know, because we are working with people. Now, the challenge comes in this shifting of mindset, that why are we doing it? It is really, really important to tell each of the team member who are, you know, taking active participation in such analytics, or maybe they are touching in a way, they are working on that. So we need to tell them why are we doing it. When till the time they do not know the reason of, you know, the importance of this analytics, we would not be able to derive right input to get the right output. And this is what the challenge, you know, we faced. We are also struggled with few points, and still, you know, we are not perfectionists that we are getting all the data analytics on the time, right, with the precise information. But how did it help? We generated learning labs for all our team members, each and every department, each and every technology. We got to know where are people, you know, getting stagnant with same technology from long time. It is the time when we really need good people. We really need stable people with us to work for a long time and to, you know, serve different industry clients what we have. Either they are coming from banking, they are coming from logistics supply chain, they are coming from e-commerce, entertainment industry, whosoever they are. If they are skilled enough with 2 or 3 different skill sets in technology, we are, you know, we have done our job right done for them. And it is one of the opportunity for them also, you know, to realize their right potential. That, for example, they are working, you know, today on the Java side, for example, right? They are doing coding on the core Java. Now they have got this opportunity to work on the DevOps side, the cloud side. That analytics part really helped us to get that gap, get that information on the table at the right time, so that we can get that time to skill them up to the next level. Right. And of course, it is a win-win situation for the sales, wherein they are getting those staff augmentation requirements. And we need really good guys who can crack those, you know, calls. They can crack that coding test, or they can crack that interaction with the client. So it is one of the example how did it help, you know, our sales, our business. And now 50%, I would say, of our services or our teams are engaging in staff augmentation and getting good business out of it. And that is giving one more, opportunity to them to be open up. Because earlier they were working on application development, right? And they were working with their own project managers, they were working with in their own environment. Now they are more opened up. They are working with, you know, the clients which are big giants in the banking industry. They are working for the products which are doing wonders for the e-commerce industry. Right. So I think that was the way how we really helped our people and organization to be, be successful on some business models.
Thank you so much. I mean, thanks for validating the belief and sharing your side of the story. It only reinforces all the collective thinking that we need to move in this particular direction. You touched upon one single point, which is like also around culture. So I have got my own IP for culture measurement. So I call it the culture meter, and it's blogged. I've got my entire IP, registered. So it's actually something which I have done over a period of research as to how do you measure the change of culture. All of us do cultural transformation. Do we really know whether it's happening or not? I made some humble attempt at that. So all the 4 C's that I said, culture can be done. The contribution is the business contribution, which is your scorecard stuff. The capabilities part of it is slightly difficult one, but nevertheless can be done. Credibility is something which, he clearly explained in terms of, how the entire organizational health index and how do you link it to and do that entire value change. So thank you so much. I think it only reinforces the belief. Does anyone else want to share? Go ahead.
So I have a question here. Yeah. So when we say do predictive analysis, how much of that, one is obviously data that is deriving, statistical data that is driving this. But how much often, maybe a weighted average is around behavioral aspect of people, which, I mean, you can't really predict, but how does that influence and how much of an influence
when you develop that.
Sure. You want to take that, or I can also take that?
So it's really difficult, you know, as you yourself said in the question. But maybe you can still look at some of the instruments which could aid to the variable as data points. For example, we have this clear distinction among the people basis their behaviors and what they think, or personality versus what they think, right? If at all you were to do that, in thinking, there could be needling brain instrument which you can apply. In behavioral, it could be extended disk, for example, which has element of your behavior on the job as well as you yourself as an individual. So those kind of attributes you can bring in if you want to make it more scientific. But it has cost investment to it, and not every organization would be willing to make this kind of huge investment. The non-scientific way of doing is, how can you actually create more authentic connect within the organization through your line managers with your team, with their team members, because that would aid a lot of good insights as variable about people on whatever behaviors you define, which are essential to define predictability. Some of the commonly used behaviors we all understand. If you see, for example, with the existing population in the organization, as we used to say when we were physically working in the office premise, that how engaged the person is, the body language of the person, the response, the abstainism of the person on a certain frequency basis, the frequent calls in isolated areas. You know, those are the known common sense based practices, and who could do the right assessment as the line manager. So these are various variables and enablers through which you can do it, but there's no an easy answer to it.
Tough. The answer is clearly a no, but while he was speaking, I was also thinking about some of the successes and failures. So typically anything which is quantitatively and empirically data driven, which is connected, are easy to do. The behavioral part of it, particularly with respect to decision making, is a very fluid one. But nevertheless, I think there are 3 or 4 data points which gives you some kinds of trends. Number one, performance rating of the individual, the growth rate of that particular individual, and third is we use pulse. So for example, where you want to know, you do an implicit pulse. So for example, I want to know whether this particular aspect that we are going to test, the prototype is going to, yield. We do something which is a dummy, which is not exactly that, and something which is a mirror can give you some kind of a decision as to which way the decisions are likely to go, and you use that. The probability of success could be anywhere between a 40 to 60% when it comes to real human qualitative decision making and behavioral science. To that extent, you take your chance, and when you have more stuff to substantiate, you improve upon it. Yeah, but never a perfect solution, but at least some attempts can be done. Yeah, and if you do a multivariable model, I think that, and if this is relatively a smaller factor, the coefficients are not going to be so important, then it is okay. Otherwise, maybe the entire equation will be under stress. Then you might as well not do that project. Yeah, I think we have one more. Sahil, can we go for 7 minutes more? Yeah, I don't know what's the cutoff. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So just touching on what you said, how about the overachievers? How do we, or how is technology going to help us with the overachievers of my function or my organization? So keep an example, I have a software development team where I have 3 performers who are well versed in multiple languages. They are the ones who will always be on the front line if there's a new client, because we know they are the stars. Now they complained about us not having enough ample opportunity for them into the technology market. So how should, as Rajiv said, the human part and the technology part can help, but then how about the overachievers that we have? We have to have those people in the system as well to make sure that we are there where we want. If we have a 10% of C performers in the system, how is technology going to help me make them be culturally happy if they are my star of the show?
Sure. I'll give you an answer. I'm not going to decipher the process behind it. Leave you with something, yeah. And this is purely from my experience, and then I'll give it to Rajiv to answer the remaining part of it. If an organization is growing at an X rate, let us assume it is growing at 15%. If your promotion rates are 20%, you automatically end up pushing the entire performers to overachievers. Number one. You do not have the capability to absorb that overachievers. So automatically in the 9-boxer, they fall out. I mean, they go to market. It may not be a bad idea when you get this entire definitions right. You actually populate it with the right kind of stuff which do not need those high achievers at that point of time, depending on the growth rate. If you're not accelerating and growing at the kind of pace, you should be cautious enough not to have overachievers. It's classically a number which analytics can clearly give you, whether you need 10 or 8 or 15, it's reasonably can be done to perfection. Yeah, this can be reasonably done to perfection. And then the backward math in terms of how you populate your organization. So for example, if you have too many IITians, then you possibly get into the NITs and say that, you know, they don't aspire to this kind of a track, might as well fill it up with this because I don't aspire. And then again, suddenly you get into a 20% growth rate zone, then again change the entire equilibrium. This is where the entire talent engine has got to be dynamically fit into the business cycle. It's done, it can be done, it's not impossible, unlike the other one, where there was huge complexity as far as behavioral part of it is concerned. This is a lot of science and math that can be built. But Rajiv, more value.
I said it all.
I said it all? Oh God. Any other question? Yeah, go ahead, Sahil. Is this a Nasscom question or your question?
Hiring, I mean, I want to know the analytics wherein it has improved the hiring process, if it has worked well. I mean, and then I will have one more question to that, that once you've hired a candidate, and if he or she is willing to, that may not be directly related to the analytics, but then from the HR side, if he or she is willing to move on to a different department, let's say from a techie to a non-techie role and vice versa, non-techie to a techie role. So what role does analytics play here and how are we capturing that?
So we have one rule amongst the three of us. Anything that was expected to be difficult, we give it to Raju. Yeah. Yeah. So this is a tough one. So we start with Raju. Okay. No. Jokes apart. Go ahead, because you spoke a lot about hiring, and then we'll add on.
Yeah. The day analytics helping the hiring part. No, actually it is a continuous. It's a continuum. So we can never say that it is done, right? So we need to crank the data continuously, and I have I'm sparing every week 1 hour with the recruiting team and with the hiring managers. I don't waste every hiring manager time entire 1 hour. It's actually 1 hour 20 minutes. Everybody has a 5-minute slot. They just join, but hiring team stays there for a whole period, right? So I'm showing that kind of interest to this recruitment part of it, and then thereby it is a hiring team feels that it is important. So because I am giving the importance, and all the managers also feel that it is, they feel that their voice is heard. So it's happening, and it's a continuous thing. We define it as define the data, whatever the hiring team is presenting. So we make some corrections on that part. And second part you said is basically people who wanted to move from one part to another part, right? Rajiv mentioned about IJP, internal job postings, right? So that's a big thing we do it. Every position has to be internally posted first. And so we take people from actually there are some service ops where people, they're fairly non-technical people, and they take the calls and they figure out where the issue is and transfer the issue to the respect to the support team, right? So we gave them, we recently realized that some people in that team are interested in DevOps. Somebody was talking about DevOps, and they are interested in DevOps. They showed interest, and they say, then we started training them. So we are providing the training opportunities for them so that after some time, not immediately, they can be moved. And this is a good motivation they found out, and that service ops to DevOps is a big jump. And what they are doing is they are doing the regular job and taking the training, external as well as internal training. After 6 months or so, they are ready to start in DevOps job. That we did that, and a couple of success stories. The guy was in DevOps, around 5 lakhs or something he was getting. And after 2 years, 1.5, 2 years, now he's at 20 lakhs and he resigned now because he got 30 lakhs offer. So that's risk is there, but thing is, unless there is a retention factor that people see that company cares for them in training them and giving the opportunities. So that's, I don't know whether I answered your questions to an extent.
I think we'll try and cover part of the ground. So I think the biggest shift, it's a very provocative question, and thanks for this. The biggest shift that you see in today's market terms, particularly with respect to the entire hiring, is the shift from talent to capabilities. We are no more in the glorified body shopping business anymore. Because at the end of the day, whatever issues that are cropping up right now, which we are possibly suppressing, whether it is moonlighting, or whether it's quiet quitting, or whether it is the big resignation, or whether it is life ahead of work, everything boils down to one simple aspect: is life is ahead of work. I will do what my skills takes me. I will do things which are convenient. I will play to my skills. I will really equip myself in terms of what I need to do, and my choice is my choice, etc., etc. And these were not some of those engagement kind of questions that we ever dealt with. So these are all new stuff that have come in, right? Now, actually think of it. I mean, God created us to live. We created work to live, and machines have taken bulk of that work. So we are figuring out what to do, and we are in this state of suspended animation. No wonder the world's, mental health or the mental wellness index is sitting at 22% globally. This is purely the truth of what we have done. So we've outsourced so much into the machines, and we do not know how to do it. And who said that we need to be working for 8 hours? I think that's where it's all creeping in now. Why not a 4-day work, etc., etc. Machines have taken so much. I think we are again, if I were to close this with a provocation, I think analytics will also take away a lot of work out of the function. Yeah, and I don't know. I'll possibly leave it with one more provocation: is HR analytics a COE, and not those classical ones that we are living with? Hiring, learning and function, learning and development, talent management. Maybe this is a COE that needs to be created right away. Maybe this is delivering more value than possibly learning or some of the other stuff. So just leaving you with this. They're all open-ended stuff. We also spoke about it. But in closing, maybe Rajiv, you can add 2 lines, because you also contributed to the provocation, and you've left a lot of black box here. So might as well close it amicably and well.
I think I'll say where the analytics come to play in this situation, and that has to do with the culture of Indian geography and largely the overall working context across the geographies. If you start tracking manager-wise success stories, and how many people moved laterally across different job roles within the same organization, how many people rotated from one project to another, maybe within the same account or delivery unit or whatever the nomenclature you follow, and how many people got reskilled, etc. There, the story will also change, and analytics will create positive psychology in the organization and will make line managers more accountable to drive this kind of behavior and help people achieve some of their objectives. That's where I look at it from.
Thank you so much. It's been a fascinating session. I don't know whether we've concluded it well. Go ahead.
Analytics is here. It has arrived. ML and AI is going to follow. But I want to take you away from that and ask, besides ML and AI, what do you think, which emerging tech influences HR function now, or maybe the future?
I think he's a guy who's like real hardcore techie guy who's like looking at emerging tech very closely. But if you were to look at it, I would say sentiment analysis and bringing a lot of deep would be the right thing. But I would have loved to be challenged. I think I would say deep technology would, because there's a lot of sentiment that has got to be done. At the end of the day, what do we do as far as customers are concerned? We do a lot of customer sentiment analysis and do that entire stuff. So here, the ecosystem is a little larger because you have prospects and employees and much more complicated stuff with gigs and all coming into play now. And but I would bet myself on possible sentiment and gig, and focusing more on deep as a technology which can back this. Yeah. So suffice to say, I think analytics has arrived, as he said. I think it's something that we all need to invest. Don't have to worry about your own capabilities, rely on expertise that's available. Don't worry about the beginning of the thread or the end of the thread. Pick up the thread. I think that's more important. Don't need to be perfect. Don't need to know. But I think the provocation of, not knowing answers itself is a good enough cause for you to dive deep into this. Yeah. None of us claim to know the full, all aspects of the discussion, but I think we all came together just to figure out whether we could lead this to a meaningful kind of discussion and path forward. Yeah. So we'll stay connected, and thanks so much, Nasscom, for this opportunity, and loved being here. On behalf of my co-panelists, thank you so much for being with us.
I'm compelled to say recommend one book if you haven't read it. Because Rajesh brought a good point that analytics changing into machines taking over some of this work, right? If you have read this book, Homo Deus, Sapiens and Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari, and the part 2 is Homo Deus. Please read it if you haven't gone through it. Yeah, part 2 of Sapiens. And it just very well talks about this AI, ML, and how machines and taking over some of the mundane work we do. Mundane work previously, now it is intelligent work, but a few years later it's mundane work, and that is taken over by the machines, right? So how human adds value continuously. So it's a good book to read.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.